Now?
Yeah.
No. Well, actually,
Yeah, no, we shouldn't have issues, because the issue wasn't the exiting. We thought it was, but it was actually the, yeah, it won't have the feedback. We went through lots of iterations on the system. We should.
Well, David should be here. He's giving the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm hoping. Okay, but do we have a quorum? Okay. Maybe. Do you want me to go ahead and start? Okay.
Bless you.
Okay. Good evening. We would like to welcome you to our Pleasantview Planning Commission meeting dated Thursday, February 3rd. We appreciate all of you being here. We like it when citizens come out and the applicants and give input, so thank you for being here. Our opening prayer will be given tonight by Jeff Bolingbroke, and also the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you do that?
Or Jim?
Could you do the Pledge of Allegiance? Jim will give the Pledge of Allegiance. We do excuse our chairman, Andy Neff, who is out of state. However, he was joining us. Is he on? So we welcome Andy through Zoom or YouTube. What is it? YouTube.
On
Okay.
YouTube. Zoom.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity we had to be here tonight at this planning commission for our city. We are grateful for the opportunity we had to serve and to hear these projects that come before the city to improve and better the quality of life here for all the residents in our city. We're grateful, Father, for the people that put so much effort and time into our city and making it a great place to live. And we ask you to please bless Jill as she moves on to a new role in Harrisville, and we're grateful for all that she's done for our city. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
And
all right, for the pledge, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask if there are any commissioners with conflicts of interest, if they would declare that at this time.
Yes.
Thank you. And
So,
which items on the agenda?
I don't have the agenda in front of me, so
Now you do.
I have it with 4, 5, and 6, I believe. Yes, 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Would a commissioner make an approval for the agenda for tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight and the minutes from January 6th.
Okay, thank you. I did have a notation on the minutes. There were just a couple of minor things. There were like 3 of them, and I had written them down, just misspellings on was. It was just a computer thing. And there was also one incomplete sentence. I think it was item number 3, if I can remember, and it just said something and it didn't finish the and. So So if we could maybe make a correction on those items.
So do we need a second?
Yes, we need a second along with the,
So I'll second Jim's motion with Julie's corrections.
okay, thank you. We will now move on to the legislative items. The first two, yes. Oh, yes, sorry. Can we have a vote on that second?
Aye.
All in favor say aye. There we go. Okay, thank you.
I have a question on procedure on 4, 5, and 6. Should we do that at another time because we will not have a quorum? Oh, okay.
Okay. Let us know on Andy though, because I know he was concerned about
And right now I have a, right now I have a
activity.
good
So if we
signal.
lose Andy, let us know when we
Right now,
get to
Julie,
those
I have a
items.
signal, so it should be good.
Okay. So number one, it's a legislative public hearing, discussion recommendation to the city council. And we will have a presentation by Jill. It's amendment to code 18.43.240 design requirements.
So looking at our ordinances as we go through projects, we find some things that can be updated to our today's type of standards. With some of the lots in a lot of the industrial areas, they're rather deep rather than having a lot of frontage. So to take into account for some of the type of buildings and the type of uses that can be used on those rather large parcels, we wanted to update the driveways for our commercials to fit kind of the more modern of the uses that can be on there. So currently it is, you get one driveway or curb cut for every 200 foot of frontage. Well, some of these larger lots don't have more than 350, maybe 400, but the uses that can be done on those with those larger type of buildings would need more than just one. So our development review group kind of brainstormed and looked and came up with the idea, which is presented in front of you. So for every 100 to 250 foot of frontage, they would get one. But from every 251 to 500 would be two. And then anything above 500 would be approved by the city. And then we just kind of reiterated with the UDOT, with the curb cuts, with the approaches with their streets. So that's what that request is.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Jill on this or any comments?
It looks like they're just anticipating future requirements and eliminate a problem before it happens. So looks like a good move.
It also looks like on a larger driveway that it would be safer having 2 lanes instead of 1. I would think particularly on commercial, industrial, that would be appreciated. Any other comments or questions?
I do have a question. So when you say a driveway, how wide is that?
So commercial can be so wide, where residential, the max is 30. I believe, I have to look further into the standards because I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure it can go up to 100 or no, not 100.
No, I think it's typically 50,
It's 50.
but then we do have, because of the way the standards are outlined, some flexibility there. So they're not definitively prescribed by ordinance. So we actually, you know, if there's a development that has larger trucks or something coming in, we may be able to widen that just through our engineer's approval.
So a driveway could be varying distances wide.
But but typically for
So you
residential.
can do a roll up. There's different types of designs, but an actual curb cut for an actual approach would be 50.
Okay.
So that's why we wanted to kind of change it a little bit for the uses that could go in those type of areas.
I see.
Great question. Thank you.
I think Andy had a question.
Jill,
He raised his hand, at least.
Jill, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Andy.
We're not trying to still put people to where we combine the two units. Like if we have one development next to another development where we combine the two areas together, do we? Can you hear me?
Andy, can you talk?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry about my connection, but do we still try to recommend when one development has a driveway that we try to combine the two driveways together, or we try to encourage the two driveways between two developments in the industrial area?
It really depends on the design and kind of what the use is, but that is something that the group does look at to see for safety and mobility purposes.
And that's fairly common on our UDOT roads because of our corridor agreement. So that's usually where that comes into play.
But will that become an issue down on our Rulon White area or in our new industrial, if that becomes a major through road in that area? Do we need to look at that or look at writing that into that design factor, because that will become a major thoroughfare connecting up to possibly Skyline Drive in the future?
That's kind of part of the reason why we wanted to do too, so that way it's not clogging or backing up. For example, Rulon White, if they have a very long parcel and they have a very large building, whether it's a big use or a couple of uses within it, that way it kind of keeps the flow of the traffic off of Rulon White.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? I'd now like to open that for a public hearing, if we could get a motion on that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to go public with the hearing at this point.
Thank you. We are open for a public hearing on that. Oh, I need a
I
second.
will second that motion for public.
We'll second that, and we will now open for.
All in favor?
All in favor, thank you. This is why we need Andy. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Going great, Julie.
Now we will open to the public hearing. Any comments, questions? Okay, could we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close. It looks like we've done what we need to.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on it?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. Number 2. Oh, okay. We need to make a motion on that? Okay. Can I have a motion that we recommend that to City Council? Yes. Recommend approval or denial.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the City Council.
Thank you, Jim. Can we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on that?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we will move on to number 2. It's a discussion, possible recommendation to the City Council on amendment to Chapter 18.31 CP1, CP2, and CP3 zone, adding assisted living as a use. We'll turn the time over to Jill to explain this.
Okay, so we had the idea to look at assisted living. We don't have very many places where it's available. So when I started, we had the Beehive Homes had a site plan that they wanted to go into a CP2. So we thought, okay, well, let's look at CP2, CP1, CP3, and see what you guys would be willing to either look at to have it permitted or a conditional use. So as you can tell, here's the maps for all the zoning. We have a CP1, which is kind of over by where Woody's Auto is, where Straw Market is right here, where the old grandma's closet was, and then Lowman View Nursery, I had to think what it was called. And then you have it along where the storage units, Pleasantview storage is, right in front of the Pepsi plant. You have it on the corner of Fox Meadows. And then you have a CP2 over here. You have CP2 in front of Willowbrook area and a CP3 in that corner. And so the idea is to find a place where you guys, where the city feels it would be a good idea to have a assisted living. So the idea we were thinking of, okay, what's going to be good traffic, not cause too many traffic issues, but also have a more of a neighborhood feel. And we thought CP2 would be a great one. CP1 wouldn't be a bad idea either. CP3 wouldn't be bad either, but we thought CP2 would be a good fit. So that's why it's in front of you guys. So we could either do permitted use in either CP1, CP2, or CP3, or conditional use. That way they would go through that process. But that's why it's in front of you. We do have someone that actually called and had the idea to talk about it, and we already told him it was on the agenda, so they will be possibly looking at it closer depending on what you guys recommend to council and what council decides.
Thank you. Jill, we have a number of new people on the Planning Commission. Would you explain the difference between CP1, CP2, and CP3?
Yes. So CP1, think of it as certain levels of commercial. So CP1 would be more of a neighborhood commercial, something you would find within a small neighborhood, or something that will, fit within some of these subdivisions. CP2 is kind of like the next level. Not something that's going to be extremely busy, but something that can have that buffer between the busy road and then the neighborhoods. CP3 is more of a busier type of commercial, and that's what's allowed in those, are the bigger types of commercial that would be more like industrial. Some of them are industrial, but type uses, but it's just another level of the commercial.
So are you saying that we need to choose one of these, or we could say an assisted living could go in any of these three if we?
Yes. So in the packet, I did make some recommendations, but if you guys don't feel that's something that you guys feel comfortable with, you can recommend. We would rather have it be a conditional use in a CP2, permitted use in CP1, and nothing in CP3.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other way around. That's why it comes to you guys to get your guys' recommendation, and then it does go on to City Council. And the difference between permitted and conditional, if a building is there and someone comes in and says, I want to do an assisted living in this building that's already there, they can go ahead and do it. Where a conditional is, they come through the process to make sure it meets certain conditions. So that's the difference between that.
Are there any other questions for Jill or discussion amongst ourselves?
Well, it looks like this is just being proactive, anticipating a growing need that will probably surface at some time. And so it kind of makes sense that you don't have to go through all the gyrations to make adjustments later on if you haven't made this provision.
So
Joe, Go.
So currently, we only have two CP3 zones.
Correct. I forgot about those. CP3. We only have the 2 right now. Doesn't mean someone could come in and apply for a rezone.
Yeah.
Andy, did you have a question?
Yeah, just as a quick follow-up, someone might be asking, and I guess you just kind of answered that, they might be asking, and we're just saying conditionally, but does not mean that the commission has to approve where they're asking it for, or they're asking for a rezone to one of these CP. But if they're asking for an existing building, it would have to either be in a CP 1, 2, or 3. Is that right? If I'm understanding?
So if someone wanted to have an assisted living and the zone is one of these and the building's there, and you guys approved to have it within those zones and as a permitted use, then yes, they wouldn't come through us if the building's there and the zone's already there. But
Can I use an example?
Go for it.
Okay, because someone proposed or suggested this to me, and I totally blew me away because I hadn't heard this. But let's just use the now defunct charter school on the west side of 89. I don't even know what zone is that. At RE20?
Correct.
Okay, so if someone said they wanted to crazily develop that into an assisted living home, would they, and we said yes to zone CP 1, 2, and 3 conditional, and someone wanted to come in and change that, they would have to first rezone it first, but the commission would either have to approve the rezone, yes or no.
Correct. It would come to you guys, but then city council would have the final say, yes.
So their first thing would, if we said yes, it'd have to be in one of the existing CP 1, 2, or 3 of something that we already liked in one of those areas, is basically what it would be.
Correct.
And it does not affect any of the current C2s that we've already rezoned.
Correct.
Okay.
It would be a CP2 or a CP1 or a CP3. And if someone were to come to get a rezone, we would do the same process as we would do for anybody. We would look to make sure if it meets the general plan, and it would have to go through the same process. And whether it meets or does anything, it's up to you guys to make that recommendation to city council, and then it's city council's final decision. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, is there any drawbacks to this, or is, from your aspect, do you see any negatives? But it just allows us to open it up and allow a developer to have options, and we can view it before because it's conditional, we at least have a chance to view it, or does it lock us into it?
So we have the permitted use and the conditional. So as staff, looking at everything, we, trying to be proactive and looking at, the future, what we're trying to help, get Pleasantview ready for, because things are going to come regardless. So we look at the zone, and that's why it's before you guys. The conditional use, regardless if there's a building or not, if it's a conditional use, it would have to come through the process. If there's no building, it doesn't matter if it's a permitted or a conditional use, it has to go through what's called a site plan, because it has to go through the process for that building to be built. Does that help?
Yes, I'm good. So I was just asking some clarifications there so the team could understand. Thank you.
And a good clarification too on the conditional. So per state law, you really can't deny a conditional, but you can set those conditions so that, let's say it's an assisted living center next to, I don't know, something that may have some conflicts or, timelines, like a nightclub, not saying that, and so maybe setting conditions so they have to put up some sound barriers or different things like that.
Whereas, if it's just an approved use, that really doesn't come forward to be able to address some of those conditions where we may see some complaints or some issues.
One of the common conditions that come through with Pleasantview is it's UDOT roads. We have to have approval with UDOT roads. Things like that we would look at and put on the books.
If an assisted living, if a developer came in right now and wanted to put in something, where would they currently, what would their options currently be?
I believe it's C2.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay.
So, and the idea with the assisted living, I have family that's been in assisted living, and I've had them where they're closer to a lot of development and it's louder. And then I've had some where it's, in a neighborhood where it's a little bit quieter. So, I've seen both, and both work, but what's going to be easier for, who's going to be residing, because we want to take care of everyone in Pleasantview that comes to Pleasantview.
You would think an assisted living facility, I know that people who live here all of their lives, many of them get older, and they would like to stay in the area. So I see it as being important that we provide places for these sort of facilities. Would you mind on the map just going through again, now that we've talked about it, pointing out the CP1 zone and what is around it?
You bet.
And the CP2, what is around it? Because tonight we're making a decision that not only affects that zone, but also affects the ones around it. So
as you can tell, the CP1 zone is a light pink. So Woody's Auto's right here. You have some homes along Pleasantview Drive. And I believe this is a big horse, right? Ranch. So kind of out in its own little area. Hasn't been developed yet. Straw Market, you've got the park here. You've got a church. Lowman View's just up higher. Orchard Springs just below. Houses along these areas. Grandma's Closet right now around it is a field. It's the field around it is RE20. The corner is the CP1. There's the triangle piece has some homes on it. We're located right here. So it's kind of a neighborhood area. Lowman View Nursery. It's got a new subdivision that's going to come over just north of it. We've got the golf course just on the other side. Going over here, you've got the Pepsi plant. You've got Barker, their property. You've got the storage units. That's where that CP1 is. This is Highway 89. Here's 2700. If the new patio homes that Tri-Terra is putting in at the very end, those are CP1, so it's commercial. And then across the street, this is 600. There's CP2 right here. I don't remember who owns these. And then if you go along Highway 89, here's what's called Willowbrook Subdivision, and here's a couple of trailer parks. Along right here is a CP2, here's CP3. Right here is an auto shop, and I believe there's a home, I want to say right here, close to it. And then all along the front, and then there's a dental place right here on the corner. That's also CP2. So those are the types of areas that are currently zoned.
How much, this looks like it's all
It's scattered throughout the
developed,
city.
but it's all pretty developed.
A
Like,
lot
is there,
made.
yeah,
It's subdivided. Nothing's right here along these. There's just a dental office right there.
Mhm.
These are empty lots.
but I'm just saying a lot of it already has
Right.
businesses and buildings in place.
before we open for, or make a motion to open for the public hearing, have you had any public comments made either online or by phone? Any input? No. Okay, thank you. Could we have a motion to open for the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we open for public hearing, the discussion or this item number 2, amendment to chapter 18.31, CP1, CP2, and CP3 zone, adding assisted living as a use.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We are now open for public hearing with a vote, of course, with a vote.
All in favor?
All
Aye.
in favor? Aye.
Mhm.
Now we are open for public hearing. Are there any comments? Okay. Could we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Since I made the motion to open, I'll make the motion to close.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Thank you. And yeah. All in favor, say
Aye.
Aye.
aye. Okay. We are now moving on to the amendment.
We need to recommend this to city
Oh,
council.
yes. Thank you. So can we have a motion to recommend this to the city council?
I will make a motion that we recommend to city council that we amend chapter 18.31 CP1, CP2, and CP3 zone, adding assisted living as a use.
Okay, do we want
With-
any condition?
With the conditions,
Or a conditional use permit?
oh, I'm sorry. I would say conditional use. That would be my preference. In all three.
We have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Appreciate all of you, and you can see how fortunate we are to have a number of people helping.
But we now need to recommend to city council, right?
Oh, yes, didn't we?
Got a motion, we got a second.
Didn't you
Got a
second it?
second, but we got to vote.
Oh, we need to vote on it. Can we have a vote on this recommendation to city council?
All in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And might I add how much we miss Commissioner Ness out of town?
Makes it look so angry.
Yes.
He's
So,
not allowed to leave in the future.
that's right. I'll just spike his tires so he can't. Okay, we are moving on to the administrative discussions and decisions. Number 3 is the conditional use of a barn within Pole Patch Subdivision located at 4903 Pole Patch Drive. So Jill.
This is a conditional use just based on where it's at. If you can tell where it's at, we have the Pole Patch subdivision, and here's the lot. So anything within an A5 zone, it is our sensitive area, so anything that's needing to be built has to be gone through this process as conditional use. So as the Development Review Committee, what we do is we look at everything. We look at where it's at. Is it going to be okay with animals? What is it going to do with our water, the recharge area? So this is what the barn looks like. This is the location. So there's the home that's built, and it'll go right behind it. Another thing that we look at is how much are they going to cover on the ground. So after reviewing everything, it has met all of our requirements, all of our standards. So as you can tell on the staff report, there's no conditions. They've met everything. So it is before you to make your decision if you will grant it as a conditional use.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments on this?
Well, it looks like all the provisions are there to begin with, if I recall correctly. So we don't have to change anything.
Okay, could we have a motion?
Quick question.
Okay, Yes,
Does it still meet with all of our square footage? I know we had the other square footage with our Oregon building, so we're still under the total square footage then? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, that was the only big thing. And then my other thing is for up there, since we don't have the water, we're not going to utilize any more water because of this.
Correct.
And we're not going to have any, I know the fire people signed off on this. We're not going to create any more fire issues having this. It'll be similar to having just another house. They'll have to meet all the other codes as far as fire breaks, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
hey, do we have a motion on this conditional use of a barn?
Go public?
Oh,
Nope.
no,
No,
this
no,
one's not
administrative
public,
item,
you
it's
just-
administrative,
So we're good.
Oh, okay.
so we're good.
Sorry.
You're good.
That's okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use of a barn within Pole Patch subdivision located at 4903 Pole Patch Drive.
A second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on this. Can we have all in favor say aye?
Aye.
So we are moving on to administrative number 4. It is a discussion and a decision on the site plan flex space building located at 2738 Rulon White Boulevard, parcel 19-435-003. And
We just have to watch and make sure Andy stays on. So we still have that form.
There you go.
We might have to unpin so we can watch him. Make sure he's. We just have to make sure we have it on.
There we go.
Oh, okay, Andy's on. Okay,
Sorry. I was looking.
ready? So this is a site plan. It's located on Rulon White. Right, here's 2700. Rulon White is right that last parcel before it goes right back into Parkland. As you can tell, it's rather a long parcel. This was one of the projects we were looking at and trying to think logically with the approaches. So that's one of the conditions. As long as council approves that, this will work. It meets the setback. What it is, it's going to be 3 flex buildings. It's designed to kind of go longer because of it's using the space that it's got. There are some conditions on there which we're working through. We've actually had a meeting and we're getting it tied up with a bow pretty quick. So really just the big items, which it's got to be contingent on city council approving the amendment on that approach that you guys recommended approval on. I think it was item 1. So that's one of the conditions. We just need an approval from Bonavista. They're the final water approval because it's going to be Bonavista water. It'll be our sewer. So they're reviewing it. They're just making their fine lines. And then just the other items. So we would just ask that the condition would be those 3, which the third would be the Development Review Committee to approval. Other than that, it does meet all of our requirements.
Are there any questions or comments on this? Jill, looking down on the current conditions on the staff report, there were a number of these.
Yes.
The stormwater low impact development that's being worked on, I understand that. Has Tyson commented on any of this?
That's a great question. We've actually had a meeting with Tyson and Dana and the developer, the engineer, the city administrator, the mayor, and I. We all kind of worked through everything to see, fine tune everything of what they needed to do. And Dana and the engineer are just fine tuning just some of the reports and getting everything tied up.
Okay. And on the current condition, number 2, that's the one that we talked about, the amendment being approved by the city council, right, on the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So number 3, it said provide detailed landscaping plan currently being worked on. No irrigation has been shown.
So that's just a little red line in the plans.
Okay.
So they have shown the landscaping plans, which meets our requirements. It's just where they're going to irrigate. So it's just a fine detail.
Anybody else have any comments on this?
I know one of the conditions was the setback. The engineer was able to send me a quick, it was after the staff report went out. So they are meeting the exact amount. It's actually 20, so they went 24.19 feet back. So they are compliant with the code that we've got.
Okay. What about the lighting?
The lighting,
The parking lot lighting.
when the staff report went out, we were still kind of trying to review as much as we could to get you guys as much as we could, as quickly as we could. So Dana's comfortable with it coming to you guys, and that's why we are hoping to have that one of the conditions as the development review committee to approval.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just looking here.
Jill, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I have a question. As I read through the packet, I'm not sure if this is the one that was saying, there's a lot of it. It seemed like we're rushing a lot of this through, and it didn't even have the building proposal to us at first. And we're still, as I'm listening, we're like, well, Dana's still reviewing it, and Tyson's still reviewing it, and they should have it. And we're still, they should be able to get it, and they should be able to review it. Are we rushing this to the point where it's not ready to even be bringing it before our commission at this time? I mean, why are we trying to push this and not waiting till the next meeting and have the complete packet before us, and then we can review it? So we can, to me, normally Tyson's signed off on this, Dana has signed off on it, the staff has now reviewed it, signed off on it, and then we propose it to our group. I don't feel like we even have a complete package here that, it's all like, oh, you will get it. We should be okay with it. And so we're voting on something that we should be okay with, right? I mean, and then, so I don't even feel like I'm recommending something to the city council that I might be okay with if the staff's okay with it. So how do we make a recommendation on a maybe could be?
No, I understand completely. There was some confusion a little bit. That's why we met with them. We kind of cleared everything up. And with Dana being able to review everything she did, the staff report went out as quick as I could. So some things have updated since the staff report has gone out. And talking with Dana and Tyson and Amy and the mayor, we've all discussed, and we feel that we are confident and we're comfortable with it coming to you guys with those minor conditions. And then we wouldn't even be able to give the building permit until all those conditions were met anyway.
But we've had a couple of these over in that area where we've had to pick up the pieces after the fact because we didn't tie those loose ends. And so if we do make a motion or someone makes a motion on this tonight, I mean, one option that we have is we can table it, waiting for the rest of the approval from Tyson and the group to make sure that we don't lose any loose ends. But if we make a motion on this tonight, how do we do it to make sure that everything's been approved by Dana and by Tyson and all the loose ends by staff?
Sorry, I was going to chime in and then I directed my microphone to your speaker.
I'll let Amy answer that one.
I just want to make sure we don't miss anything if we make a motion that we get all loose ends, because we have been burned on some of these in the past. And it ends up costing the city because we didn't make the proper motion and it didn't get documented. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. So let me jump in, and I was going to jump in on this a little bit. I'm going to be presenting the next 3 items, but one of the things that happened with these items, and to no fault of really anybody, was a perfect storm. We received about 7 items at the same time, major big development items, and just really kind of ripping at the seams with our capacity. So we're excited for some of the growth that we're going to be seeing and want to work with developers. And so part of it is a refining of our processes. And that's going to take a little bit of time. But to Jill's point, we're changing up how we're doing things in the way when we have red lines for developers. We're going to be sitting down with the developers, with our development review committee, our DRC, and then also with the developers, engineers, and their other staff, to go through all of our different questions, concerns, things that don't meet up with where they should be. And we have started doing that actually this week and prior to or following the packet going out with some of that. And so that's where we're just experiencing some legitimate growing pains as a city. We're trying to work on improved processes so we don't end up here again, but we also want to work with our developers and provide the option to have the consideration. So I do very much apologize. We are very much at capacity, but want to be as accommodating as possible as well. One of the things with those meetings, I will say it's been incredibly productive just going through that list. And you asked a really excellent question, Andy. How do we ensure that these things don't fall through the cracks? How do we ensure that things don't kind of fall into disarray? And so one of the recommendations for conditions this evening is a final approval through our DRC. So again, it would go back through our development review committee, and that's something you could add on as a condition, as an option to ensure that there's kind of that final check-in. But we have gone through in detail, in depth on these items, and I feel badly that we weren't able to give the Planning Commission more advance notice on these. So you are welcome, as Jill stated, to table if desired, or to recommend denial or recommend approval based on the conditions before you.
So neither of you have a hesitation if we let this go forward, if we were to put a condition on it? You both feel confident that?
I feel confident with the discussions we've had.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a plan on this? A plan, or, usually.
A plan to get to the point where they can
Well,
get.
usually we have the plan up here. Would
So
you
this is what
go
the
back?
building's going to look like.
Yes, but like a site plan.
So this is the site plan. This is where they come in. It's essentially, it's kind of like a condo. It's a business condo. So there's a building A, B, and C. It's going to be one big building, but they're going to be divided. And the parking and the details of the lights will be coming as Dana's reviewing it.
Amy, I think your mention of a development review committee is a good idea.
And there is some language on the sheet I gave you for the other ones. You're welcome to pull into that. I think it's kind of the final condition on those others. So welcome to pull that in if desired.
Mm-hmm. So are there any more questions or comments on this?
No.
I do see
Julie, my only concern, I guess, now, Jill, are we the recommending body, or are we the approval?
This one's an approval by you guys.
Okay, so my only concern, I guess, why I had hesitancy is the fact that we did not get the full packet beforehand, and the fact we have been burned on a couple issues over in this park in the past. we all saw this building as we looked at this road, so we kind of knew exactly what was coming in this area. So this is not a surprise. We kind of know, we've seen this layout in the preliminary on something like this already. I think that we've kind of seen this come. The only part that I would from our commission, I think that we need to make sure that we're asking for future is to make sure that we get complete packets, so we feel comfortable recommending or approving anything as we go forward. But I think on this one, as long as we make sure that we implement a full, the DRC approval that is, and the staff approval, and that Tyson and our engineer have bought off on it, that we put all of those as part of the recommendation. And I'm feeling better about this just because we have seen this project.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that comment as well, because with my time on the commission, I've never seen an agenda item with so many engineers' comments that are not completed. And I think at this point, I could speak for all of our commission members in saying that we rely heavily on people in the city who have much more expertise than any of us to clear off on things. We like to have the information beforehand. I know when the packet comes out, I download it, I go through it. I generally drive by the sites, and we rely heavily on having all of that information to make a decision so that we can think of questions, comments. And so I appreciate Andy's comments. I think on this one, it's been very helpful to know that we've got that development review committee that is almost a safety check on this item. So that increases my comfort with that. So could we have would anybody care to make a motion on this agenda item? Jeff can't and I can't, so.
Which number is it?
We are on number 4.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve site plan flex space building at 238 Ruin White Boulevard, parcel 19-435-003. I'd like to include the condition that have a final review by a development review committee to make sure everything is in compliance and we don't have any issues later on.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we are going on to item number 5. It's a discussion decision on commercial preliminary subdivision 2700 North, located at approximately 385 West 2700 North. Once again, we can approve, we can deny, we can table. Oh, this one is, oh, okay.
That was my typo.
So this one should have, okay,
It's an administrative item.
okay.
The way our ordinances read, it needs to go to city council, so you'll make a recommendation to city council.
Thank you. So this one, we can approve, deny, table. Apparently, we can do the development review committee as well, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So before you this evening, we do have a proposed preliminary subdivision off of 2700 and approximately 385 West. And so with that, sorry, is your clicker dead? I'm sorry. Oh, thank you so much. So that's the lot in a red box, and I'm going to warn you all now, with Jill leaving, you're going to get not as great mapping. I'm so sorry.
Please be patient with me. So approximately the red box on the screen. And so in looking at the zoning with what is being proposed, it is compliant with the zoning as commercial is being proposed for this area. Jill, if you could click again, I'm sorry. And this is the site plan that is before you. And so you'll notice several different, and this is part of the, again, growing pains that I mentioned. There's a lot of commercial being proposed in this element. This is just the subdivision, so this isn't all of the individual site plans. We will be talking about one specific pad that is proposed for site plan at this time, but this is the main subdivision just in general, allowing for this commercial use. And again, this is in compliance with our city code. We have worked incredibly closely with the developers on these to discuss the different items, but they're really looking forward to getting commercial moving on that property. And so this is the area where the city has proactively zoned for the commercial uses. If you could go to the next slide. And so with that and going through all of the different approvals, and to Jill's point, we have kind of gone through with a fine-tooth comb. We have 3 remaining, and it really is mainly 1 remaining, but just wanted to kind of do a catch-all condition that we'd like to propose if you are interested in consideration at this time and this evening. The UDOT final approval needs to be issued. They are working closely in getting that final approval. And then just to verify, to make sure we didn't miss anything with our city ordinances, we don't anticipate that we did, but that those are all met. And then again, that DRC just approval before anything final happens. So I don't know if there's any questions on that, and happy to go back to the map and speak to that if desired.
I would appreciate that. Would you explain what they're planning? Like, is this houses?
No, this is commercial development.
Okay. So that's.
No, excellent question. And so there are several perspective pads and quite a bit of perspective parking area that would go into this. And the entrance is right off of 2700. And so again, that's where we need those final approvals from UDOT in order to allow for that to occur. And then just working through kind of the details of that. But ultimately, and you'll see a little bit more in the next proposal before you, there will be 1 pad that is looking for a site plan consideration this evening, but the remaining would come back to the Planning Commission at a later time.
How many businesses would fit in that?
I'm not actually certain on, yeah,
What size?
the different sizes in that. So
So is there a stormwater retention pond here, or it's not?
the stormwater, oh my goodness. Is it that microphone? No, I don't think so. Darn it.
That's all.
It's off. Okay. Sorry, we had someone mess with our system and it hasn't quite gotten back. The stormwater has been addressed with our engineer. So there's, from what I understand, not an on-site detention, but they do have a floor for that.
So Tyson and Dana have both seen this plan?
Yes, so just similar to the other one and per what our new process will be, and I again do apologize that we didn't have more in your packets, but we have had meetings with the developer to discuss all of the different items related to these, in addition to any questions that have arisen, and any red lines have been addressed with the exception of the UDOT access at this point.
I have a question that I've been thinking about on the DRC, the City's Development Review Committee. How long have you had that committee, and why is it we have not ever, to my knowledge, been utilizing that committee?
So we do utilize it. We meet every other week, and we've utilized it for different for different methods. And so we're just expanding our use of it.
Okay.
And so right now, before anything goes into construction, they actually have a pre-construction meeting with our group and go through all of the details to make sure that everything is in alignment.
It's just that I can't remember us really having that as the option. Have we?
It's kind of buried in the boilerplate language that you put in the front for every initiative that we review. It mentions the development review committee in there. And so you know it's an entity that exists and can function. We just haven't had a lot of exposure to it.
So the people in the development review committee.
And the engineer, and then when applicable, we have representatives from
The other water entities as well.
I'm aware of that. I'm just not familiar. It's usually information we need here, and it's not just relying on that committee to make that. So, yes. Mayor, please, fill us in.
So typically in the past, what we've used it for, we meet every other Wednesday. We review all the projects, all the city projects that we're working on. Okay. This storm sewer project, this park project, and there's like a 2-page list every time we go through. And that's part of it. The second half is existing projects. Where are we on this subdivision? What inspections are we waiting for? Do they got their SWIP in place? So on and so forth, that type of stuff. Typically in the past, it hasn't been used. We're going to start using it because, well, the reason we're going to start using it differently is because we're so dang busy. We only have one planner, and now we have no planners until we get somebody else hired. But we're changing the process up, like.
Somebody turn off your mic for a second.
Like Amy mentioned, we're changing our process. And when we get Jill's replacement in, we want to have this process in place where we have this to go through proposed projects and not just finished projects, to say, how do we move this process along faster? Is everybody's mics off?
Andy, can you just overall
How about this one?
turn off that one for a second? There you go.
So, this is too loud. It's too loud.
Do we want to try to turn that off?
So it has existed for quite a while, but with a little different function, if you will. Again, to review the city's projects, which are lengthy. Like I said, there's a couple pages full. I think you'd be surprised how many projects we have ongoing at any time. And then the current projects that have needs, that type of stuff to identify, and so that we can wrap them up and bring them back for conditional and final acceptance and all that kind of stuff. That's how it's been used in the past. So we're changing our process so we can get more upfront involvement with the developers to hopefully kind of take the burden off, or at least change the process a little bit so we can move these projects through so they don't drag on forever. Especially where we're getting more commercial projects and big commercial projects. I mean, like this project. You know, normally we get them like the last one, where it's here's a site, here's a building, it's going to be divided into 3, it's going to be whatever. And now we're getting these that are a lot more complex, and we're trying to move them and streamline the process a little bit better. That answer your question?
Yeah, that's very helpful. And
Well, and do the,
yes,
come in, come to the mic, please. Sorry, or you can go over there.
Just to add to what the mayor said, when you guys get those staff reports where it has the engineer or whatever else, that all happens in DRC. DRC's existed ever since forever and ever, and it just hasn't been referred to as DRC. And so if the stepping stone for getting, this puts a lot of more, I guess, expectation on the developer to get things done. This just kind of gets the meeting out of the way, but now the developer can't really receive a building permit or anything until they complete everything that they're supposed to complete with the conditions that you've put on there with the city council as well. And so more pressure on your staff to make sure that everything is done in the city. Really,
That's helpful. Yes, you may. Oh, would you come forward and
A
you need to
microphone.
state your name and address?
You can come to this one or that one, Brent, sorry. Middle one is the problem, we concluded.
We had one of those meetings that were extremely helpful. I was able to bring my engineer.
Can't hear him.
Oh, your mic might be off.
Turn the mic on.
Here, try again. Sorry.
Okay, so Brent Bailey, so we had a meeting this last week with this committee, and what I wrote, we always have an early meeting, but nothing's been drawn, nothing's been put together. And then the emails start, we need this, and a lot of stuff got lost in this process over time. We'd get comments from the city, and that was after they'd had the plans for a week or so, or 2 weeks sometimes, and then we would have them in our hands, and then we had to take our week or two to respond, and it really drugged the process out. But what was really good about this meeting is that the architect was in the meeting, the engineers was in the meeting, city public works, these people here, the mayor was there, and was able to actually have some conversation face to face about what needed to get completed. And it was kind of nice for me because in 2 or 3 days after that meeting, we accomplished as much as we had accomplished in the month and a half before. So I think it'll be a real help to the city to, and maybe, it doesn't happen a week before, maybe it happens 2 weeks before.
And that's the anticipation will be that it will be well in advance, and then you all will get the information well in advance too.
But I say as we come down to the finish line before we come to your body, that we have that meeting.
Streamline.
Very helpful to us, but I think you'll get more accurate information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like it will streamline the
I
process.
appreciate the fact that we had that meeting.
That's great. Thank you.
And we appreciate your group coming to the table too, Brent, on that.
Thank you.
And Andy has a question, Julie.
Okay. Andy.
Julie, I just wanted to comment and follow up to the mayor's and Sarah's comment, and I appreciate them being here tonight and making comments. But I just wanted to stress again the importance of the staff, and in the last couple months, they've actually, we can tell the difference of, we've changed the rules in the last year to allow the staff to have an authority to be able to basically make decisions on our behalf, and those changes have been made, but we've also expected them to come and make recommendations and be prepared to have those recommendations for our body. This is a perfect case where we need a full packet before us, just as you do, Mayor, expect to have the full packet before you, before the city council. And that DRC meeting should be held before our meeting, so we have a chance to review this, not at the meeting. So we have a chance to drive by the site and actually be able to review it. And we don't like to be told, hey, we have no customer service in the city, because we as a body are trying to rush to help every chance we can to push development and help the city and the staff. But we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions because we have the right information. And so that's why we're trying to work with the staff to make sure that that's hand in hand. But our body doesn't want to recommend anything right or wrong to your group if we don't have the information at our hands. That I think it should be both ways, not just something handed to us at the last minute.
Thank you, Andy.
No, and that point is very well taken.
Yeah. I would add to that point, I'm really happy to hear about the changes in process that will streamline things. But I think it would be really helpful for all of us if we were given an email or some indication of what's going on in the city and how it affects us, just so that the night of, we're not finding out, oh, yeah, the city's doing things differently than we've done it before. It would just be nice to have that heads up of we are doing this and how it will affect us as a committee.
No, and that's a really excellent point too. I think there was every hope to be able to do that. Everything has just really kind of been a perfect storm with this circumstance, not to excuse that we didn't get that to you in advance. And that's where you do have those decisions before you. We don't want to pressure one way or the other.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that's the problem. This is, and that's why I'm here tonight. Is this is different, but it's only different because it moved up the timeline. We as a staff met 3 weeks ago, and I said we're going to change the process, and then Jill's leaving us, and all these hit like at once, and it's like you said, the perfect storm. It's not a good storm, but it's a perfect storm. We needed to get these things done. We only met with them on Tuesday. We plan on meeting a lot more in advance than 2 days before. Was it Monday or Tuesday? It was Tuesday.
Okay. Before
Planning Commission meeting. That's why Amy has drafted up some things, and the process is kind of still in flux. We haven't fine-tuned it yet. Again, that's why Amy's presenting, and I showed up today I knew there would be some questions and some concerns. Until we get the process worked out, I toyed with meeting with Andy and going over this, and it's like I don't really have enough to meet with him about, because we haven't finished in the process yet. Me and Amy talked about when's the right time, and it's like, do we bring a new planner in and see how it all, so we're a little unprepared. We can own that. We do own it, but we will get there, and then I will sit down with Andy and maybe you, Julie, we could together sit the 4 of us or 5 of us, if the new planner's involved, and let you know exactly how.
And I'm happy to draft up an email, tomorrow, and just really outline where we're at on the process, because I will say one thing we are going to do moving forward is that meeting with the developer, because there's just so many different developments going on, and with this project of this magnitude, and it is a subdivision proposal, and so it's not anything really finite. It allows for them to bring forward additional site plans at this point, but it really doesn't put everything into stone on this. But, to allow for us to be able to work through these bigger projects in a more robust way, because I think we are having some significant growing pains as a city, and it's a challenge. The capacity that Jill has had to deal with of these, and I think unfortunately that's part of the reason why we're losing her. She also found a job with more aligning with her interests, but we're really tapping our staff hard on some of these things as well, and so we've got to work out new processes to improve how we're doing business so that we don't have those issues.
And in fairness to the developers, as we talked about, should we go forward with this or wait till it's quote perfect? We felt like you guys are competent enough, the city council's competent enough to go through, and the staff is certainly competent enough to ensure that these things are met. I felt personally we should not penalize the developers because we don't have our processes, or we don't have our act all in place. Where, and like I said, a perfect storm, all these came in at once. We're losing Jill. We haven't got a replacement yet. We need to refine our processes and make it easier with all this commercial that's coming into our city. It's great. People have been begging for commercial for a long time. And the last thing we want to do is discourage or run off developers because we're not prepared and we don't have our act together. But we felt like between the Planning Commission, the council, and the DRC, we could make this all work.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's go on with our agenda. We are still on item number 5.
So with that, I had 3 recommended conditions
for approval on this particular item. If you choose to recommend that approval to the city council, there are 3 conditions that would be associated with that: the UDOT final approval, the verification that all city, state, and federal requirements are met, and then that final subdivision approval from the DRC group. And so that's the completion of the presentation for that particular item. If there's any questions, that's my next slide. I'm happy to entertain.
Amy, one question.
Yes.
What if one of those 3 items are not met? Does it come back to our committee, our commission?
So there's
Does
really
it-
no.
Does it wipe the whole thing out and it has to start over?
If the conditions aren't met, then it can't move forward. And so I guess to some effect, yes, it would wipe it out. But I would believe in working with these developers. They have every intent in meeting those conditions. If there's any, if there's any changes with the layout or modifications, that will come back. But if all of the conditions are met as is, it would not come back. And if they just are simply not met, it would not come back. It would just remain in flux where it's at.
And there are timelines that they have to abide by.
It's typically a year. If they don't,
Consider expired, but if, you know, the developer wants to move it forward and get it done, they'll meet that timeline.
Thank you. Any more discussions or comments? Are we ready to entertain a motion on number 5 on our agenda?
Since I have the paper, I'll do the motion.
Okay.
A motion to recommend approval on the commercial property subdivision 2700 North, located at approximately 385 West 2700 North, with the inclusion of the recommended conditions by staff. The 3 conditions that were recommended.
Do you need to list those?
3 conditions. It was UDOT approval, city, state, federal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, we've got them in the development review committee. Those were the 3. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Could we have a
Vote.
vote? A vote. It's getting
Yes.
late. A vote. Could we have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so that one passes, and we are going on to number 6. And
Okay, number 6 is similar, but this is actually one site plan proposal within the development. And so again, my mapping is not as good as Jill's. The location is off of 2700. This is within the CP2 planned commercial zone, and the zoning is compliant with the proposed commercial use. So with that, you'll see that there is mouse. Sorry, mouse me, Jill. No, you're just fine. Oh, let me go back here. Oh, I went the wrong way. Nope, I went. You're fine. Okay, here we go. So there is before you this pad A, but then also within the development, several parking and driveway type improvements. And so the intent is that as this pad A goes in, that the other improvements can go in, but all of these future phases would come forward later. They could come in as one single site plan or multiple site plans, depending on how things evolve with the developer, but the developer would like to get all of this infrastructure in place to assist in bringing forth additional commercial entities. And so this is the approval of the pad A portion. That all of the others are listed as future phase, and those are not being approved as specific developments, but this does include allowance of the parking. And so one thing to note with the parking going in
in advance, they will still be required to meet all of the parking requirements depending on the different uses that come into play. And I did have this map again to show you kind of that layout again of the entirety of the development. So there's the pad A here, and that's 2,700, and that entryway in. And so if you look at similarly, this is where that pad A would be located.
Amy, so if there's, I understand the pad A would go in, and let's just take for example, the two front future pads. If they want to bring something and put on those two front future pads, then we really don't have much of a say on how the layout of those would go. Is that correct?
It would still be a site plan. So those will come forward individually. And as those site plans come in they don't have to come individually. They could bring them in as a grouping, but they would come forward again before this body. And
But where the layout is already for the parking lot, the flow of everything is
yes,
already
you're
now
correct.
set up.
This does put into effect that layout.
So my concern would be, I'm gonna do a very politically suicidal comment here with our past commissioner and my kids. But if you put a Chick-fil-A in that front pad, I love Chick-fil-A, but every Chick-fil-A in all of our counties and every county in the area, the infrastructure is just atrocious. And I would swear up and down that if I have anything to do with that, I would not have anything to do with the flow of the way they design their parking lots, because they eat up every parking lot of everybody that's associated with them. So that would be my concern, is if we as a body allowed this and they tried to come and put in that front area, which I would love them to be there, we wouldn't have a say in their infrastructure of utilizing that entire parking lot for them, but being obnoxious to every other customer in all of the other pads.
And I guess from my perspective, you'd have semi-say in that. So you wouldn't have a say in modifying this layout, but with drive-throughs, there's particular things that we look at with the code that meet certain conditions, expectations, and with parking, that's something that you could look at and say, you know what, this doesn't meet the flow with the existing infrastructure in place, and we're not going to allow this. That is something in your purview.
Isn't it the fact with commercial development, larger development like this, they are somewhat subject to change depending on who you get the contracts with and who comes in?
Well, and I think that's part of it too. They are subject to change, and in speaking with the developer, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the developer, but part of why they'd like to get the parking infrastructure in place is it helps to bring in, be a catalyst to bring in those different businesses. So
yes. Yeah.
Site plan. So this is actually an approval of the current body. This does not go to city council. But this right here, I'm sorry, because I'm using a different map. So now I'm making everybody confused. I just wanted to show, because so this is no.
This isn't the Chick-fil-A map. Just kidding.
I'm so sorry. I've created confusion. This right here and the parking, but the parking is on that bigger piece. So the site plan proposal does include all of the different parking lots that are on there. And so that is correct, but it is only pad A that is being.
Each one of the pads will come back here.
Yes.
Yes, we're only considering tonight pad A. Pad A. So even though we're looking. Yeah.
And full disclosure, we're not opposed to having a Chick-fil-A.
No, I love their waffle fries.
The developer just stated not for this development.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
So a good example of this, do you guys know where Mountain View Landing is? What it is it's the corner of 2700 and Highway 89. It's that northwest corner.
Where the Block
So
Texan
there's,
Barbecue is.
The Ogden Clinic and all those businesses. So this would be similar to it where he would
Oh,
put all
yeah.
the parking, but those buildings will be open ground until the design comes in, and then they'll come in as a site plan to you guys. So that part will come in as they bring the buildings in, but this site plan is just for Pad A. But Pad A would include all the parking for the.
Is Pad A, is there already a business that's building that, or this is just the developer building it?
From what we understand, it is the developer. So they might have a contract with someone, and that would be something that when they come in for business license, we would make sure it's a permitted use, or if it's not, then we would have to go through that process.
So on the recommendations, it says conditions will be given at time of meeting, which is now. So are
Yes.
there any conditions?
So that's where,
associated with
sorry,
this?
the sheets that I handed out to you, this is where to look. And the conditions with this are identical to the last,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if this went or.
no, you're
okay.
fine. So the first one was the subdivision proposal. The second one is the site plan proposal. So this is actually an approval or a denial or a tabling. And then the third one is on the back that
Oh,
I'll present next.
did not even see the one on the back. So.
Hidden for you.
Okay.
Sorry for the chaos again. We've tried very hard, but failed in a lot of ways
So
in
this
informing you.
one, the recommendations are really similar to what we had on our previous.
Yes, they are the same recommendations actually, and it's relative to that UDOT final approval, and there is some coordination happening to get that in place.
So Amy, are you done with your presentation then? Any other comments?
I am.
Okay. So do we have
Got
any
that.
questions from our commissioners? Any questions? No. Okay. So at this point, could we entertain a motion on agenda number 6?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval for the site plan. With what? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion for approval then. The site plan project 2700 North, located at 385 West, 2700 North, with the conditions that staff has given us as recommended conditions. UDOT final approval, verification that all city, state, and federal requirements are met. Final subdivision approval from the city's development review committee. That ought to cover about any circumstance.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, can we have a vote on, do I have to, yeah. 385 West, 2700 North.
Item
The
6.
site plan proposal. Number 6, item number 6. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Hi,
motion passes and we're moving on. Now
Okay,
we're moving on
great.
to number
This-
7.
This last item is similar to the others, but in a different location as well. So before you, for consideration is, oh, you're just fine, is an item Peakview Plaza and a site plan specific to this. So it's a site plan on a specific area of this and not a full subdivision plan as the other. So this is a consideration for the commission this evening. So in verifying allowable uses in the zone, this is in the C2 commercial zone, and you'll notice it's located across from the other area where there's efforts happening. So there's a lot of commercial development abuzz in the city. And so this is compliant with the proposed use. And so this is the site plan that is being proposed for consideration at this time, with an entrance off of 2550. And so you'll notice this doesn't include the entirety of the item on the map. Let me get the mouse. Hopefully Andy can see my mousing. This is actually down in the bottom corner of this, and the driveway that will be coming into this corresponds with one of the driveways that goes down into that school back behind that's not within our city boundaries, but they are trying to be sensitive and coordinating with that. So with this, there's the parking here, the proposed building here, and we've been working similarly closely with this developer in verifying and going through all of the fine details as to what this will entail. So as a result, we do have a bit more with the recommended conditions, and a lot of it is really just some verification with some of those items. Finalizing the water service line, so that's something where the location of that will be that we're working through. Some of the details on the design approval from the Central Weaver Sewer Improvement District is pending at this time. Implementing the comments that are going to be provided for the LID and just ensuring that that's in place. Owner executed long-term stormwater management agreement, verifying the parking calculations for building type and use, verifying our drainage calculations that were received, and then there were some conditions in the will serve letter from the secondary water service, and so just making sure those conditions are met. UDOT final approval with the location, and this goes into a little bit deeper because there will be an entrance for the entirety, or well, there is anticipated to be an entrance for the entirety of the parcel off of 2700. So there would need to be some coordination there to make sure that those pieces come in together, and then that verification of the city, state, and federal requirements, and then the final approval from the DRC as well. So with that, I don't know if there's any further questions or dialogue on this.
So Tyson and Dana have,
So Dana actually,
they can't sign off on it.
yes,
Because there are 10
yes, conditions met. And these conditions, I'm going to say right now, I am not an engineer. These conditions come very closely working with Dana. So these are not something that I came off on the fly. Thank goodness I'm not coming up with these type of conditions. Can you come to the mic though? I'm sorry. With Andy on the phone, we don't want to leave him out.
Is Andy still with us?
He is still with us.
I'm still here.
Right. Thank you, Andy.
It's late at night and my battery's about to die, so.
Oh, we'll hurry, but not too fast.
Just double checking, just clarifying with all these conditions, whether approval, denial, whatever table, as you move forward and you recommend approval, if that's the commission's desire, all of those have to be met before a building permit is issued.
Correct.
And staff ensures that.
Correct.
That was my question. I just want to make sure that, that's just, yeah.
Yeah, but Sarah, and I was just actually going to ask that point. Typically this, with that many conditions, this should never have been brought to our committee tonight. I mean, this is just, to me, that this is too many items to even be discussing. It's like, we typically should be looking and saying, okay, should that road be hooking up with this properly? Or are these roads going to meet with the next lot properly? But
Andy, I have a thought, if I may, Madam Chairman. I have a thought here. Here's where a tremendous amount of trust comes in your staff, but also you guys as Planning Commission. Just a thought moving forward, making sure that your ordinances are written the way that you want them to be written, making sure that all your standards and everything, and that Planning Commission kind of puts more on your plate to review our standards, our ordinances and things, so that you feel comfortable saying, okay, we have all of these in place and we know that staff knows those too, so that as you make a recommendation, you already know what the expectation is. Does that make sense?
But should we be doing them before or after? Should they be recommending that stuff before
we've done it
propose it to us, or after?
I think that's relative. It depends. We've done it a certain way all this way, so now we're shifting to a new way. And now you put more pressure on your staff and you guys to know what your ordinances are, to know what your standards are, to understand the process of DRC and all of those things. And so now we're just kind of redoing the process in what step 1 is, step 2, step 3, step 4, and kind of getting a meeting out of the way and putting the onus back on the developer and their engineers to meet the requirements that staff has put on them, and trust your staff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we'll learn that process.
It's just a new process,
Yep,
and it
we're
gets
open
this
to it.
meeting and things, but I suppose maybe hopefully staff helps the developers understand that the expectation is just because you've gone to a meeting doesn't make it like, oh, you get your building permit tomorrow.
Well, and that's why we wanted to
so-
specifically outline and go through the conditions
Yes.
so that they're here and they understand. And I will
More
say,
communication.
and that's the exact intent of the improved process. And I think we absolutely need to step up our communication with the Planning Commission in that effect too, because as we modify that process to let you all know. But with this, I think, it's up to you all too, and what your comfort level is. We don't want to push the Planning Commission one direction or another, so that's why this item's before you for your consideration, and there are multiple options on the table for you on this.
Amy, could you turn back to the plot plan? And I got a question on the entrances. You've got an entrance on the left, and that's going to be the main driveway in. And I know they own more land than just for this one part of the development, as we talked originally with the rezoning.
Yes.
How do they tie in? Because there's limited UDOT connections, both to 2550 and to 2700. How do we tie into the other parcels?
So there actually is an option for some connectivity off of 2700 with this parcel. Right now, because what we have before us is the site plan and not something larger like the other, it really is a focus in on what this site would be on the property and the allowable use on this site. But to your question, in talking with the developer, and again, this is nothing in concrete because it's all based on discussions. There is a look at having a roadway go through the entirety of the property from 2700 to this outlet. That's not something in concrete, but that's something that's just being looked at this time.
So at least they can connect on the upper middle,
Yes.
Upper corner of the property or the parking lot. And then on the lower part where they're coming in, on the bottom left, it can be connected into the other parcel or the other landowner. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's where that condition with the coordination with UDOT is quite critical, because we want to make sure when this goes in, it's not going to preclude or prohibit other development from coming into this off of 2700 as the city desires to see more commercial in this area.
And I think that's what's so important for this body, is that we're looking at those things, and that we get
Absolutely.
that we're looking at this ahead of time, so we can look at those type of things. And and that's what I like to look at ahead of time. So thank you.
No, excellent questions. If the Madam Chair is comfortable, sorry, I'm not in charge.
You are welcome to speak. Come forward.
Please come to a microphone,
Your
though.
name and address, if you would.
Dave Laloli, the developer for this project. The reason we only have this site is because we were waiting on UDOT and to firm up that access. I think the project or that process is moving forward pretty good, and it sounds like it's going to happen. We have a full site plan that connects from 2700 all the way down to this point, and we're prepared to submit that the second we get the warm fuzzies that UDOT's ready to go. That's the only reason we didn't provide a subdivision. We have the Rush Fund Center that's going to go here, and they need to get open as soon as possible. They'd like to be open by November of this year. We're really pushing against those deadlines, but and that's the only reason we have separated it. We would have done a subdivision and a whole site plan, but just to answer those questions a little bit. So
As long as we've got the developer here, does anybody have any questions that you would like to ask?
My only question was about the UDOT approval, but that was explained. So
Do you already have the secondary water?
We have the
secured?
will serve from the secondary water. Yep, and I believe
It did have some conditions.
the condition was to
yeah.
annex, or to, not annex.
So is there a stormwater plan on the site?
Actually, we
Kind
have somebody on
There is, it's kind of
online,
cut off
so
on
let
this
me.
plan, but there is.
Sorry, Jim, I'll have to. So I do have, and I don't know, maybe getting on my phone on Zoom would be the easiest way because I want to make sure Andy's included in what we. Okay, I hope I don't have some major feedback or something.
And you said it's Rush that's coming into this spot.
To that spot, yeah. It's a 77,000 square foot building.
And that's why the parking lot is the way it is, because the building is so large there, right?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I got all the information. This is what you're looking at is just a landscape plan. What's also in the packet is a.
And it's not in their packet.
That's been part of our problem, is we are missing some information.
You see the sheet that she's Xeroxing off right now. You'll instantly, what Andy's talking about, just brings it all together. And you see the full side, the access, the what's going on. It's kind of a picture filled with powerful words and nothing else. Just pass it.
So this is actually not included in your packet, and the reason why is because there's not a consideration that there's the greater plan. So I just wanted to.
Just to kind of mention that, a big thing was where the entrance is located. We tried to line it up right across from the school. So that with the aerial behind it, you can see it. It shows the Rush building on the southeast corner. Shows the parking, the dragon farm. Also shows the future connectivity going up to 27 everyone. So I can see without having that visual before you, it's kind of confusing how to put it together.
And this is not, just to know though, this is not being considered for the full.
That is correct. This is a very site-specific site plan considered. Thank you.
And our entrance is in line with the north side project that you had approved earlier, assuming UDOT.
So it's connected with the previous subdivision.
That 2700 north access.
Okay. And are you two coordinating on cross access and everything then between the developments?
Yeah. So for Andy's benefit, sorry, I'm going to repeat you, Brent, but they both did a traffic study and are looking for a signalized intersection between the two developments. Not to play repeat, but
yeah, no,
I'll make sure Andy can hear.
That's a question that I had. Oh. Is Andy still on? Uh-oh.
Andy said I could vote for him.
Yeah.
Do I have a quorum?
And my, I guess I had one other question, and that was is in terms of the retention, the water. Is that what item number 3 is on the condition for the water retention?
Sorry, let me pull that and look at number 3.
Because I just didn't see any.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that is exactly what the idea is. Sorry. Number 3. It's been a long week.
Hey, any other questions or comments on this? Okay, we can entertain a motion. We can look at approving, tabling,
You get to
Oh,
do
I
it
can-
now and
Nine.
then.
Or you. I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan for item number 7, Peakview Plaza, located at approximately 500 West, 2700 North, parcels 17-063-0071 and parcel 17-072-0065. With the
Would you
conditions
like to,
Yes.
outlined by staff in the report.
Alpan?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have had a motion and a second. Now we will vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So we will go on to other business. It's commission communications.
See ya.
Thanks for coming.
We do because Jeff does not have a conflict of interest on this, and so we have a quorum. Okay, staff communications, anything? My only communication would be, I'm really uncomfortable with getting a list of 10 conditions that we're having to wade through and wonder about. We're willing to meet every 2 weeks or twice a month, even though we're scheduled every month. I myself on some of these would say, let's just table it for 2 weeks. I'm afraid we're going to set a precedent so that you can come and just throw it together and it's okay because it's all going to go through the review committee and then come back to us. And I don't believe that is necessarily fair for us or for the citizens that we represent. So that's my comment.
No, an excellent comment and well taken. And in the future, I can assure you that this is not to be the norm. And that's.
Thank you. And also, when processes are changed, I would rather not hear about it at the meeting. I would like to know beforehand that the processes have been changed so that we are informed, that we know what's going on. It makes our decisions easier, and we're not floundering, having to have explained to us how the city is now doing things differently than we've done them before, and we're expected to be on board immediately. And that's just, recommendations here. I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel about it. Feel free to speak up.
I think that's a fair statement.
I think very valid and excellent points, and appreciate the feedback for staff, and we will do better.
Yeah, and I think you two both have done a great job explaining why tonight was not the norm. We just want to make sure this
is not the norm. Exactly.
It's not the norm. So.
Jim.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
And I think we appreciated that. We appreciated the explanation. And that's why basically everything presented tonight did pass, because we were looking at trying to look at all sides, just an assurance that this is not the norm.
and just one thing. Oh, I'm sorry, Seth.
I was just going to say to Stefan, you know, kind of all through the years, that being as it is a fluid process, that, you know, meeting with Andy and getting input from them to say, not just what, you know, the staff or the, you know, administration has decided that this is our process. We take our recommending body by law. And so if you have some thoughts of, hey, what if you also do this or whatever else, to have that conversation of improving the process too, I think would be very helpful. I think so.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And one thing to the mayor's point, and I agree, we didn't have our act together, but we did too, in some ways. I think just capacity wise, if we continue to, and we can only expect to get this capacity of projects and things that are happening in our community, and we're going to be anticipating some major commercial developments, we need to modify what we're doing because it's not sustainable. And that's very evident by losing one of our finest staff members. It's not sustainable how we're approaching things, and we need to adjust and pivot and refine what we're doing, and so that we don't burn people and things and developments. And it's not that the people here aren't doing an excellent job, because they truly are. We have one of the best public works directors, one of the best engineers in the state, and one of the best planners. And so that's not the issue. It's more so capacity and ability to funnel the.
Would it be helpful if we had like a checklist that we had of things really I think maybe that would help us if we had a checklist. It would be nice to know what's a deal killer and what isn't. You know what I mean? Yeah.
These are like somebody with no sort of letter or waiting on UDOT. But you know what? UDOT approval will come in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have an emergency meeting or a special meeting in 2 weeks, but still delayed. You're talking a $60 million project. That's
yeah. Yeah.
Some of the things went some of them,
yeah.
I would like that. I would like to have
I would.
Have these, and these could be conditional.
Yeah.
And have every county commissioner and city council member have a list that says, okay, not that we don't trust our staff, but we want to be informed of, so we know that, you know, we're making a good decision, because that's a big deal.
I think it would be really helpful on our end.
Another thing we want to get around is these site approvals for fine. We do not have a preliminary. So their point was we've spent like $600,000 already. We're at $600,000. Other cities do have preliminary
Site plans, and then it comes back for the final.
Yeah.
At least not. Yeah, this was good. Whatever. It's here. Yeah, you'd have to work this out. Whatever. Then they can spend $600,000 probably come back and find. So that was one of their suggestions.
Well, that might be good too.
We decided we meet with them to find out where are our shortcomings compared to others. That's one thing we said. Other cities, other cities have a preliminary and a final.
What would be the balance of that?
Just the only thing would be adding another step in the process, right? But that doesn't really.
Can I make a comment? So I do personal, I work for Brent and Bailey in full disclosure, but I also do stuff on my own. And I've done some projects up in Brigham City, and they allowed me to come to Planning Commission as more of a discussion item. And it was, they didn't give me like 2 hours, right? I mean, but more of a, they allowed me just to come before them. Here's my concept plan. Is this
Like a work meeting type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Ogden does that with their planning commission too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this project, the 4700, they came to us in June. Me and Amy and Jill, and said, hey, this is what we got an idea, we bought the property, this is that. But they didn't get the application until November 23rd.
And then it wasn't fully completed because there was a lack of communication with some of their contractors and there's a lot of different.
They thought their people were doing stuff.
Or one, and then try to get the other back or whatever, but yeah, that's not our fault.
That was their staff.
Yeah, it is.
That's not me.
That was the client, that would have been the only project.
Yeah.
You see, this is just commercial we're talking tonight. We can talk about all the other housing stuff.
I really like the idea of a checklist and requirements of what's a deal killer, what we can work with. And I'll tell you why, because it levels the playing field.
Yes, yes.
You have somebody come in who's got a $20 million project, and too often cities will look at that, or planning commission, and it's like, yeah, it's a $20 million project. We want that. So we're willing to make these concessions. We'll let you slide through. Meanwhile, the guy comes in with an $800,000 project, and it's like, yeah, I'm really not comfortable that you don't have this information. So we let the 20 million project go. But hey, we're going to penalize the small developer. And that's just where you get into that city government, good old boys club, who you know, how much money you have. And if it's clear cut, I think it makes it more fair for developers. And both small and large developers can put their input and know this is what the deal killer things are. And, you know. Mm-hmm.
You cannot be on the grid.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot easier. The other thing is
Yeah.
our engineer talked about engineering, the same thing, think back, 12 red lines make it too long.
Then their engineers
And I'm
have their
sure they go to the
developer,
developer. You know, so we want the developer to do his, not our engineer.
Well, and all of us to communicate in one place. You meet it or you don't. Yeah.
I like that. Really helpful.
And if everybody in the city knows what that checklist is, then it's not negotiable too.
Right. And people are held accountable.
Exactly.
For what's on it.
City as a whole.
And the mayor, right?
No, but we get that you're just not easy to work with. You guys don't like this, or it's just, we're no different than any other city, to be honest. We really are. A few little things like, you know, the definition here and there, kind of, but the process is pretty much the same in every city. It really is. And for anybody to ever say that wasn't even, you know, difficult to work with, I want to go and say, give me a specific, how will we do it? Because we're no different than anybody else.
Would help.
Come to you guys before it spends a ton of money. I talked to Dave, trying to fast, take the plan up, he was on the city council. And we developed the shell station. Kind of upset, so I brought him in and I met with and a couple of developers that I did that. It's like, okay, tell us what are the most doesn't tell us if it's rural or tell me why. Some of them will tell me a little minor. Nobody can tell me. Nobody can tell you anything. But that's okay. Even the minor things will fix it. We'll make it better. So that all the groups, council, the preachers, the staff, work with the problem.
Just one comment on you being the most difficult city that they work with. I've worked with a number of developers. Every city they're working with is the most difficult city they have ever worked with. So don't beat yourself up too badly.
That's true. They don't want to go in and have to do a whole big site plan that's gonna cost them $20 unless they know that that site plan's gonna work.
Yeah, very reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like some great communications and some great things are in the planning. Sometimes out of
We
the
could have
ashes-
communicated better with you all, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, when you have the mayor, the city council member.
I knew there would be. You guys take it out on that. Say, hey, what the heck is the deal here? Money to me, not there.
We appreciate administration despite some of the concerns or even complaints on some things. We appreciate it, and many times out of the ashes, really beautiful things are built. And before we adjourn, Jill?
Hey, can I make one more comment?
Oh, sure.
Going back to, are we easy to work with? I don't know. I will say that Brigham City was super easy to work with. They were very helpful. But I did, one of the things I did was, my brother's doing a subdivision out here on 89, and I think the fees are in Pleasantview what Pleasantview charges are just astronomical. But here, let me tell you why. Oh yeah. I took the 14 lot subdivision that he's doing. Pleasant View's city fees were $13,000. Brigham City would have been $750. North Ogden would have been $1,500, and Harrisville would have been $2,500 for the exact same subdivision.
The reason being, and I can explain to that one, we have deposits.
That's not a fee.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The upfront deposit, but
depending on with the deposit, there's a deposit that just sits until when everything's conditioned and finally approved, then it'll go back. The biggest deposit's the $8,000 for preliminary, and that goes on to an account because we are contracted with our engineer. Depending on the project and what, if your engineer is efficient and quick and accurate, you'll get most of it back. But depending if you have an engineer that we have to keep reviewing, keep correcting, we have constant communication because they're not.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's honestly, that is the reason.
That's just the upfront fee for someone just to make an application, but that's what it would cost for someone. Perhaps. I'm just saying, yeah, perhaps, but yeah.
But you're saying it's a large portion
Oh, yeah.
up front.
Oh yeah. It's like.
We've had to use it because their engineers aren't efficient or they walk away.
Those aren't infrastructure fees though. Yeah.
Not paid.
Yeah.
saying we haven't passed.
No, and I would just say, but I think that is some of a deterrent, to be
No,
honest.
feedback is good. Well, and especially, just evaluating and seeing, how we compare. I think that's a fair.
Yeah.
to assess.
So when somebody pays that, are they told that if things go smoothly, they get a lot of that back? Okay, so that's clear.
And I've been able to give some examples of, well, hang on, Highland Meadows. They are one of my favorites. I will be honest. Highland Meadows is my favorite because it was quick, smooth. That engineer and Brett Bailey knew exactly what needed to be done. It was slick. They were from application to conditional use within 6-7 months. So then I still had some money sitting on there, and that also covered all the inspections as, then our inspector goes and inspects the sewer lines and everything else. And let's be so when they're that good, there's a good chance you can get it back. But there are some examples where there's some subdivisions, and I've kind of showed and I've laid it out, where they've taken over a year, and just before even infrastructure is in, they doubled that 8,000 in fees before they can even do the work. So that is one thing I try to explain to help the developers decide who they want.
Yeah. But all of the inspections and things, most of our fees are passed on fees that we have no control over. Since it was we were told, and they were just continuing, what they charge is what they charge, and we don't charge any extra for it. But all the inspections have been, those are required by law. We're not putting any other inspections or fees or anything on you, on any applicant that we use. On this one.
It's a big jump.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But definitely something we could look at. And
Those are just review fees, not all the impact fees that you're talking about. Those are just the review fees for the application. That's yeah.
We talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
What to do, because then we get burned, and then Sarah Gary has to pay for that developer not being able to do.
But how do you get burned though?
She's just saying residents get burned.
With that deposit, what happens is because we're contracted with Jones and Associates. For example, Jones and Associates will say, okay, we've done all of these developments or reviewed these plans. It goes in, I put it in charges for the development. So, for example, Island Meadows, they go through and they say, okay, we reviewed the plans, we did a sewer line inspection to make sure it's laid out correctly, whatnot. So then it sits on their account, the city's already paid for it. I've actually already sent 4 accounts to collection because no one's paying. But for example, Highland Meadows, because they have that 8,000 deposit, it's just coming off of that. And now that they're in conditional acceptance, whatever's there is sitting there. And then once final acceptance, which is between a year from conditional to final, that's making sure all the infrastructure is staying in place, everything's great. Once they get that final, city council approves it, then all those deposits go right back.
We've actually had people walk away from projects that we've had to finish, and part of that deposit goes to that too.
There was, I think, there's one that's due to go to collection in a month or so, and it's well over 12,000.
I couldn't help but think, though, how healthy these conversations are, that you could ask the question because the fees seem so unreasonable and be able to get that feedback, and how there probably needs to be more of that conversation going on in the city between developers and the city, because we do want development. We need development, and we need to be development friendly. On the other hand, we still have to be responsible.
And protect the
But
city.
there's a way to look at that and improve that, or not collect as much or whatever else. I think, like the mayor said, it's an ongoing fluid process. When there's comments and suggestions that staff and city council and planning commission should look at and say, hey, how can we refine this? How can we tweak this? And like Julie said, keeping those lines of communication open so that we have good feedback and adjustments and, yeah.
Yeah, I take it all with a grain of salt, because if we're the most difficult city to work with, why are we so dang busy with development?
All I can say is you ought to deal with North Ogden.
Well, here's the other thing too. Let's be honest here too.
Still on the record, let's be.
Land isn't going
Okay,
anywhere. And,
Yeah.
you know, people are gonna develop, whether it's this developer and they're upset or whatever and walk away, another developer is gonna come right in. It's not like we're gonna have people say, oh, we're not gonna develop the property. Yeah, they are. Yes, they are.
But I agree with
Yes.
Julie, and that's a big reason why we have the planning commission. I mean, obviously it's a state law deal too, but you know, we love your feedback. And so when we have this communication, if there's things you hear out in the community, even, you know, about the city generally, or want to reach out to us as staff, you're more than welcome to at any time.
That's what I love about my experience here at Pleasantview City. I started on the planning commission and spent my time on the planning commission. Then I ran for city council and did 2 terms on that. And then I took some time off because I was so busy with 2 jobs and a church calling. And then was on the Board of Adjustments during that period before I ran for mayor. So I've gotten to be able to be involved in the whole process all the way along. And it's served me well, you know, in my own. Yeah, I think everybody should do that, to tell you the truth. It's a good natural progression, but it gives us some good foundation to understand what's going on in the city and how it works and stuff. And that's why I'm so passionate about not coming and influence and being, because I think there needs to be that separation. But
Well,
so, first time in
I haven't seen him.
there wasn't a joint meeting.
okay, before we formally adjourn the meeting, we want a formal appreciation to Jill Hunt, who
I've been to
has
some
been
combined
amazing.
ones.
I'm going to pull this out so that you know why. It's not much. It's lotion, but it says pure wonder. Because it's a pure wonder that you can accomplish what you've accomplished. And all the work you have done is a pure wonder. And we wish you a wonderful experience at your new job. And thank you very much from all of us.
I will really miss you guys. You guys were one of my highlights that I've enjoyed every minute of it. You know, it's not easy to stay in late all the time, but when you have a group like you guys, laugh. You know, I sit here. You know, maybe I'll start laughing.
Oh, I come over and giggle with her.
You guys have also helped me learn a lot. Time, and especially the patience. And I figure out.
And I just want to extend appreciation to Jill. She's been a phenomenal asset to our city. And not just that, but a friend, you know, somebody to really lean on and to help us through many different things. And so appreciative of her and the person that she is and the character that she possesses and the contribution she's made to the city. And these meetings are public. You are always welcome to come. Bring your family. They might not ever let you pick a family outing place again, but try it for once.
Well, this one was a little rough and plenty to laugh about. So we will.
I would have been concerned. I would have been concerned if you guys didn't raise the questions you raised. Okay. I mean, like I said, I came here expecting exactly what I got. So, you know, that's why I showed up. I think if I would have came here and you guys would have just went chink, 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 I would have been, oh, wow, well, you know, that's odd. And that didn't play out how I thought it would play out, because I expected that you would have these concerns and questions. So.
Well, and yeah, I've never seen it happen like that.
Well, and I'd just like to tell Jill, thanks for being patient with me as I learned, because I was new and had no knowledge of this. And it felt like it took me a while to kind of get a little comfortable, and we had the whole pandemic going on, and that was always Zoom. And anyway, so thanks for being patient with me and teaching us how things go. So
Yes.
She went from, like, seriously, do you want to know? Okay, I'm gonna. Her training was, here's a book, read it. I'm not kidding. And so Jill took, okay, she called everybody, she checked on other cities, she went to every training she could. She made best friends with the state ombudsman. She knows the laws inside, outside. And she wanted, it wasn't just, I'm going to do a job. I want to do the job right. I want to make sure the city's protected. I want to make sure that our processes are followed. And I want to make sure that the residents and the staff are taken care of. And Jill, you won't find a better planner. Really, she stepped up to the plate, and if she didn't know it, she found out. And she worked dang hard to be the gatekeeper of the records and to work with these developers, even though she got treated, it was really challenging.
Yeah, it's the hardest
Really,
job.
really challenging, but she took it.
I agree.
And she worked hard, and she still said, this is our process. This is what we need to do because I have integrity and I want to make sure that everybody is covered.
And absolutely excellent.
Yes. So thank you, Jill. Thank you on behalf of somebody who lives here and appreciates that you looked out for me and our city. And I'm going to miss you a lot.
And you know, that attitude of what Sarah just expressed, it's what all of us, the staff, can carry on even though you're gone. So.
And I'd give a speech, but I've already given 3.
Hey, I'm sorry.
I mean, about her, not these.
I'm so sorry, Sarah.
Hey, there's pizza in there.
Cool
There's pizza in the
That's what
fridge.
we had at noon.
I missed it too. I had an appointment.
About like the city council.
Yeah. Yeah, we should have done the party tonight. Thank you. Hey, thank you for everybody's help. It was, I didn't I adjourn? We're adjourned. Motion. Can we have a motion to, this has been so rough.
You've done great, Julie.
Oh, it's been so rough. Can we entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting?
well, I think I was. I'll second it.
Meeting adjourned.